G'day Lawn Care World, welcome to Lawn Care Skull Sessions with Ben and BJ. BJ, we've got a cool topic tonight. What are we talking about?
We're hitting the employees. So everything employees, from the good, the bad, and the ugly.
So we'll be able to tell some stories, maybe give some pointers.
Yeah, some good stories, some bad stories. Stories about how we treat our employees and how we act will change the way that they act. So
Yep, and provide hopefully some helpful hints for some people out there who are either new to employing people or are looking to employ people soon. Obviously, all the businesses out there that currently employ people, we might not be able to teach them anything new, but you never know. Sometimes you find a gem in there.
yeah, and there will be some good stories. So
Yeah,
that'll be for everyone.
there'll be a little bit of funny banter of stuff that's happened to us. Now, just want to say that it's a bit later than what we usually shoot.
Yeah.
You can see BJ's repping the Ballard Products t-shirt tonight, but he fully dogged us and he bailed.
Yeah.
So
I was a bit sad. I cut my hair, trimmed my beard.
I stayed up late.
Yeah, stayed up late. I got all ready.
Sorry if I look a little bit high, but I'm actually not high.
Yeah, it's been a big day, so I did a few arm curls to get that pump, so maybe, he'd respect me a little bit more.
I had my first COVID shot, so...
Oh, nice. Yeah, sweet.
So, anyway, let's dive right into it. So, BJ, let me just ask first. So, you currently employ one person right now.
I do.
Are pretty happy with that person, but how long did it take you to find that one guy? And don't get me wrong, it's still early days.
Yeah,
But you've been going for a while with him.
Yeah, so he's currently been with me about a year now. He basically came on full time. Before that, I had guys that would do a split over the week. I had a part-time that would do a Monday and Tuesday with me, and then someone else would come in and do like a Thursday, Friday, and I'd just go solo on a Wednesday. But it's about 3 years of mucking around with people to finally just give it all away and get just one guy full-time on.
Now, I reckon we should probably try and start at the start. And, people out there who are either brand new to this or who are, looking to, because we're getting in that summertime now.
Start to pick up.
The whole industry is booming. Do you think that there's a preferred way to employ someone? Let's talk about the type of person first.
Yeah.
Now, we're not going to discriminate, but I'm just saying, you've got, these are the questions that I see, and I've tried them all. You can go young, old, male, female, experienced, non-experienced. What do you think is... Because I've done the young and old thing. The old thing felt... People are probably going to give me shit because I look old. But I hired an older guy once. He might have been 55 or something like that. Probably back when I was 30. And, fine worker. But it did feel a little bit awkward bossing around someone like that.
Yeah.
I think nowadays I wouldn't have an issue with it.
Yeah.
But it felt a little strange to me.
Yeah. For me personally, it's always been... So the first couple of employers I had were young and they had experience. And with that came the challenge of their bad habits. They were bringing that to my sites and their attitude. Some of them were really good, like they were really good to work with, but a few things were bothering me. One was really bad, and we'll get into stories later, but that was
We'll save the stories for a little bit.
that was a good one. But this guy that I've had on, he was working, so he did have experience, but the person he was working for wasn't treating him right, only let him push mow. So he had no experience on the snipper. He's done mulching and things like that, like basically just a labourer and a push mower. That's about all he had experience with. So as soon as I got him on the snipper, got him on the hedger, and I taught him how I like to do things.
Yep.
And that's just made a world of difference. And I sort of found someone who was kind of like me.
That's just not easy.
No, not easy. No, like he's a lot shyer than me. So I haven't seen him with his clothes off or anything. So, but no, like we've got the same sense of humour. We find the same sort of things funny. And yeah, no, it's good. Like it's good to find a good fit.
One thing that I've always found a little difficult, it always starts off great. It's like that honeymoon period when you first meet a chick. Like that ever happens, eh?
Yeah.
But, everything's like, they're trying to be on their best behaviour.
Yeah.
Everything's clicking, and then, about a month or two down the line, you start, that's when the shit starts.
Yeah.
For me, in my experiences. But I've had a couple of young fellas, and unless they're fully experienced, I actually don't mind having someone that is a little bit timid and, they're not experienced and they're a little bit, I always say, just feel free to ask me any question.
Yeah.
You're not an idiot. You
No.
haven't done this before. So make them feel super comfortable in that way. But where I've found it's a positive is if you find someone inexperienced, they haven't learnt to fuck up yet.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
That's exactly
they
right.
haven't learned how to do things the wrong way.
Yeah. The first broken window is always one of those things where you see them.
And it's not an easy, that's not an easy gauge of whether someone is a good or bad employee. But
no, but you get
like,
to gauge what they're like under that sort of like, oh, I've really fucked up here.
Yeah.
Even
like,
though
I hired two young fellas
Yeah.
at the same time. They were both mates, which was not the best thing to do. Probably don't try and do that. But one of them was really handy naturally on the tools. The other one was not.
Yeah.
And it really used to get under my skin when he'd just grab that snipper and he'd just do things that I didn't like. Whereas the other guy was a little bit more, I had to teach him, stay straight, do all these things, and I found we had a better working relationship because this other dude was just a know-it-all.
Yeah.
And know-it-alls, I mean, I don't know everything, but
Yeah, it's hard to get along with a know-it-all.
yeah, it was really tough to sort of.
They already know everything. You can't really discuss much if they already know it.
And what about when you are in the process of training someone, the way that, say, we would do things, if they are doing something that is a different way, but still getting positive results, do you accept that and do you let them?
Yeah, look, I do in some regards. Obviously, if something is not as safe as I think they could be doing things, then I'll pull them up and we'll I'll be, what is it, a compliment shit sandwich or something?
Yeah.
So compliment, then a bit of shit, and then some sandwich, and then some more compliments.
Yeah, I mean, I had it once where we had someone and it didn't matter what yard you were in or what piece of grass, everything was just done like this. Like they just, and it was really fast.
Yeah.
And I guess it was neat to a certain extent, but I just much preferred, do your perimeters and then just go there and back.
Yeah.
Presents a lot nicer.
Yeah.
And, I used to say to him, like, can we just get, the lines going? He's like, oh, yeah, but then I sort of found he wasn't really taking that on board. There's some of the things where, fair enough, they are doing the job.
Yeah.
And it's finished. It looked okay.
Yeah.
But I just, it was really hard for me as a boss to be like, no, I want it done this way.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel you.
So
William and I, like, sort of he pulls himself up now on a lot of things. Like, he'll mow, like, because we got the villages, so he'll mow a whole street, and then, if he's walking back and he sees that he could have cut it shorter, he'll literally quickly skim back over it, and it takes him 5 minutes.
That's a rare man.
And I'm like, oh, I like that.
Well, I'll tell you what, I can one up you on that.
Oh, okay.
Rusty
Oh, yeah.
will actually look at some of my work, and I catch him going back over it. And I'm like, "Oi, what are you doing?" And he's like, "Oh, nothing." And he's got OCD, and everything has to be perfect.
Yeah.
And when we've got time, I don't. It doesn't matter. But sometimes, if I've done something that hasn't been perfect, it's more a reflection of either how much time we have, or what we're getting paid for the job.
Yep.
In his case, if you say, hey, clean out that garden, grab all the leaves out, grab all the dead shit, rah, 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 you can come back to that garden and there will not be one single thing left in it.
Yeah.
But you know what I mean? That's not always, you haven't always charged
take
for
too much time.
Yeah. So,
so with your younger guys, did you find when you like bought new equipment or gave them something that they hadn't done before, like it sort of boosted the I don't know, like they were stimulated, like they wanted to actually like get stuck in?
Yeah, I mean, there's been a few guys and they've all reacted a little differently.
You've had a lot more
stuff
run through your
I mean,
business
I couldn't tell you off the top of my head, but there's probably been close to 15.
Even I was there.
Was
I a good employee?
One of the best. One of the best.
That's all I wanted to hear.
No, probably, I probably found, maybe with the, some of the places that we whippersnip are pretty hardcore.
Yeah.
Like just very overwhelming. You're going to be on the snipper for, probably 2 hours just doing upright edges.
Yeah.
And, you have to get to all the little bits for the ride-ons and stuff. So some of it was very overwhelming. And if someone misses an edge or something like that, it's not a big deal.
No.
But if you've got, wonky edges and scalped bits, scalping is probably one of the biggest things, to be honest. Guys...
It can ruin a whole lawn.
Yeah, because we soften everything. I don't know if everyone out here will understand, but like we've almost become super excessive with the whippersnippers.
Yeah, yes.
I mean you're probably like this too,
exactly
because because you learn on the same sites as us.
That's exactly right.
If you have a grassed area and you do all the edges, and then you kind of you've uprighted them so you got a nice edge, but you kind of soften them so that the mower doesn't have to get all of those little bits.
Yeah, you don't have that risk of the wheels falling in your edge. And
that's right. Yeah.
That.
And I know I get to we'll be at our village, and DJ does this too.
Yeah.
But like sometimes you can hear the snippers going, and you always know where the boys are because you can hear the machines. And I know sometimes with Rusty, I'll be like, are you still snipping? You get there and you'll be like, there's nothing to fucking mow, Russ.
Yeah.
You've done everything with the whippy.
Yeah.
So, there is some of those things.
Bit too enthusiastic.
Yeah, but I think once anytime you're working with someone new, and you're either learning or teaching, it just takes a minute to, you know what I mean? And then eventually you get there.
Yeah.
So...
And, even like Will's been with me a year. He said to me today, he goes, I feel like I'm like 100% capable now. I know the routine off by heart. And this is at one of our bigger villages. He goes, I know it now. So that gives me like a bit of confidence just in case like I break my leg, I can just watch and just be that supervisor.
One thing that I know too, this is for anyone who's recently employed someone, but one thing, like I would have someone working for me for like 6 months, right?
Yeah.
And we had a pretty regular schedule because we're doing bigger jobs. We don't have to do as many. So sometimes, 2 days a week we'd be on one site, another day we'd do road jobs, and pretty much all in the same suburbs, and we may hit 10 depending on how big the jobs are. But like I'll never forget how much it used to, and these days I don't ride with anyone, right? So I've got my own jobs that I do. I will go see the boys on their dedicated sites. That's all I really do with workers these days. I don't have someone with me that I have to put up with. But one thing that used to piss me off is they never knew the runs.
Yeah.
You're almost there at the same time.
Yeah.
Every time, because everything was so, and they'd be like, oh, what are we doing today? And you'd be like, okay, we're doing this. And then which one?
Do they whinge when you get to like number 5 or 6? They're like, how many more do we have?
Yeah, so that's something, we're going to come back to that because there is something that I want to talk about when we're talking about employing people.
Yeah.
And it's you, the employer.
Yeah.
We'll stay on the hiring part at the moment. So one thing is obviously about the pay.
Yep.
Now, I've always structured my every single worker has had the same, well, maybe with the exception of one, every single worker has been employed on a day rate system.
Yeah.
Some really high, some not so high. Do you do an hourly rate system?
Exactly.
Do you do a day rate system?
No, I do a day rate.
And so what that means, now look, lots of people disagree with this.
Yeah.
Everyone structures their things differently.
Yeah, that's fine.
What I've always felt is that it motivates that person to get as much done, in as little amount of time as possible.
Yeah.
With the exception of, you don't just go out there and rush everything.
Yeah.
But the way I've always tried to look, I've always set our runs for 7 or 8 hours. If you go over, that means you're slow.
Yeah.
If you pump it out, go home, have an early one, whatever you want to do. If someone wants the opportunity to make more money, we just discuss that on the side.
Yeah.
Slip a few extra jobs in there.
Yeah.
And that day rate can then be altered a little bit.
That's exactly what I do.
So if I had a worker that was consistently getting days done in, say, 6 hours plus a lunch break, you could add a job, and that would be to the benefit of your business. But if they had approached me and said, look, I'm doing this work, I find it pretty easy. Is there an opportunity to make more money? Sure, bung another job on there if you had it. I mean, it's not, it doesn't happen every day. But I tell you what, I mean, there's been times where, with rain and all sorts of crap.
Yeah. I'm expecting this week to be one of those weeks where,
yeah,
we've forecast for rain tomorrow, and I feel like it might actually eventuate this week for us. And there's
apparently 100% chance of rain tomorrow.
There's one full day down, so that'll have to get caught up. And
so for everyone out there that's listening, obviously, we're not going to tell you the best way to do it, but you would agree that some sort of a day rate system has worked pretty well for us.
Yeah, definitely.
I've always found hourly rates to look, they work if you're charging a client an hourly rate.
Yeah.
As long as that worker is being productive and proactive.
Yeah.
If we're on an acreage or, we don't do tons of hourly rate jobs, but we've done heaps in the past.
Yeah. I do a couple now.
Yeah.
Just acreage jobs that
we only ever did it when we had teams.
Yeah.
I never did it as a solo.
Yeah.
I could never work for hourly rate.
Yeah.
If I was sending 2 guys out to do gardening on an acreage all day, it might be okay X, because you're paying those guys whatever, that you're just gonna make something.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So, I mean, something to definitely consider. So young and old doesn't really, I think as long as they can go.
Yeah. Yeah. That's it. It's, I wish that you could put no softcocks on your resume, on your ads.
We will get there with the stories. I'll just, we'll
ease into them.
We'll ease into those. We'll try and get some of the, because people have been reaching out to us.
Yeah.
They want to know about some of this stuff.
Yeah. No, that's cool. It's good.
So
that's what we wanted.
I think also we're probably ready to touch on it. If you're employing someone, you've got to be ready to step up as a boss.
Yeah.
Right? And so there's, I don't follow all the rules, but, you need to be able to give these guys drink breaks, food breaks.
Direction.
You need to be able to...
You have to...
and your business needs to be able to sustain an employee. So there's nothing worse than when you hire someone and, you might have 3 or 4 days of full work, and then, you don't know what you've got. Because on their end, it's happened to me in the past. I said, okay, we've got no work today. And depending on how long that person had been with me, or whatever the situation was worked out, they may get paid, they might not get paid. It's changed throughout everyone else. But you've got to at least think to yourself, if you were that person, how committed can you possibly be as a worker if you're not getting that full commitment from your employer?
Same with when I first started getting people to come and work with me doing my road jobs, and we would go through this massive dry patch. I'd have 9 or 10 on the books. We'd go out and it'd be so dry that we'd drive past 5. We're still out for half a day, but like I feel like a dog not giving them a full day because they've got out of bed and so that's where the day rate for me kind of mucked up. But it didn't take long for me to realise, we're going to have to set some rules and like if there's only a half day, you're only going to get half a day's pay.
Yeah. I mean, look, it works both ways.
Yeah,
like if we had a day's work and my machine broke down, or whatever the case was, and we worked say if we were finishing at 3 and we finished at 5, that day rate wouldn't always apply.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like if it was completely out of their control and they were doing everything that they needed to do, they would get paid extra.
Yeah. The same with if I put on an extra job, like if we have rain and I throw an extra job on, like I will always up the day rate to sort of reflect what we've done. It's no point taking someone out from 7 till 5:30 and being like, oh, you get the same pay as if we finished at 2:30, 3 o'clock. So I'll always throw like an extra pineapple on the end of the day or something like that, and then it just makes it sweeter, makes it a bit juicier at the end of the week. So
and things to consider. You've got extra uniforms for you guys and girls, or whatever it is that you're employing. Whether it be extra drinks in the rig.
Yeah,
sometimes you pick up lunch.
Work cover's a big one.
Work cover's a must. And admittedly, my first few workers, I mean, I was a bit younger back then, and we're going back a while. But, it probably took me a little while to get amongst all of that. But now, it's just a non...
Well, see, that was part of the reason why I had a guy working with me the first 2 days, and then I had a guy working with me the last 2 days. I'd do solo in the middle, because if they're not doing 80% of their workload with you, you don't have to look after their work cover. They have to look after themselves. So
that's true. Yeah, I've always sort of... Yeah, I'm not sure. I think because that is the rule. If you've got guys on an ABN and they're not doing they have to be doing 80% with one employer. For you to be accountable for their. Yeah. So I mean, look, if it was 3 days and under, I wouldn't look after that. No. But if it was 3 or 4 days.
As soon as I got someone on full time or 4 days a week, then they went straight up to work cover. I don't fuck around with someone's safety, and if something happens, then I'm covered, they're covered, we're all good.
Now, everyone out there, so something that I do with my workers, and I am literally at the stage now where, because I've got Catch Pro, I'm not 100% invested in Greenscape Solutions anymore.
Yep.
So this is going to change, and people have different views on it, but I refuse to pay people or hire people now on wages.
Yeah.
Everything is a day rate under subcontractor circumstances.
Yeah.
So because too many times, and only the business owners will truly understand this, but too many times, I mean, I've worked with pneumonia, I've worked with, half broken ankles, broken backs, all of this stuff, right?
Remember when we played basketball and I got a grade 3 calf tear?
All of these things.
Like pushing a push mower. That was before I even had a ride on.
Yeah, I mean, but, no one will ever care as much as you do.
No.
And I've had guys, I keep saying we'll get there, but it just keeps creeping up. But I've literally had a text at 5 o'clock in the morning saying, hey, can't come in today, got a doctor's appointment, I've hurt my thumb.
Yeah.
And, it ruins the whole week.
Yeah.
You know, if you don't have, you either need to pick up all of their work for the day,
Yeah.
or you need to be able to delegate whatever jobs for the rest of the week,
Yeah.
and you still have to pay this person.
Yeah, it's horrible.
Now, I'm at the stage in my life where if Rusty or DJ come to me and, you know, say, hey, I'm not feeling well or whatever, you know, you can tell when someone is not feeling well. You know, and you can tell immediately if they're just, you know, taking the piss or whatever. So in my business for the last probably over 5 years, I've never given... Now, I've paid sick days out to people before.
Oh, yeah.
For sure. But it's not something that they get standard. Same with holidays.
Yeah.
I don't get any holidays.
No.
And now I'm in a situation where DJ has asked me, he's like, hey man, I'm moving into a new house. Can I take 4 days or 3 days off? And can we work something out with the pay? And we worked out something.
Yep.
And there's no issues. I can do that with him because he's done the right thing by me.
Yeah.
But, you know, I mean, you've got stories of guys just taking off down south and trying to get some sick days or holidays or something, but no, mate.
Well, even like when you go back to wages, I'm actually looking to employ someone right now, and I thought I had a really good lead on a really good guy. He works for one of those bigger mobs like Sky. It's like a Skyline kind of place. He said the work environment's not good, and he doesn't like getting to site at 5:30 and getting to leave at 5:30. He lives like 45 minutes away.
Yeah.
But as soon as I said, look, you got to get your own ABN. We'll start you on a day rate. This will be the rate. And then he's like, oh yeah, I can't do ABN. I was like, why not? He's like, I don't, what do you say? I don't feel like that gives me much job security. And I said, that's fair enough, but you want like all this, I'm offering you this.
Yeah. I mean, for me, I've never hired under anyone under those circumstances with the thought that I can or will fire them whenever I want. It's always been based around how productive that person can be.
And I've seen his quality work, and he's a good worker, but what he wants is like up here, and he wants a massive company to look after him, but he wants that small business environment.
Yeah.
So, I think...
I mean, it's tough. Like when you get... look, in a small business environment, it's... You can't just get an everyday worker.
No.
You need to have someone that is going to come in when maybe they're not feeling the best.
Yeah.
Or maybe when life is not the best.
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes... I know I've felt like this with Rusty. Sometimes when we've gone to work, like I've felt like we're like, you know, strapping up for fucking war or something, you know, like hot as hell days, raining, grass long, bugs, spiders, everything.
My feet are still strapped from today.
Yeah. And, you know, like you need to find that someone who cares that little bit extra. I saw a post. I've never done labour hire before.
Yeah.
I never will.
I was labour hire.
Yeah.
So in my previous job, that's how I started. I started the first 6 months when I was like, 17 or something like that.
Yep.
And then I went permanent. But yeah, it was a weird experience knowing that the labour hire company basically gets paid double.
Yeah. I mean, look, when I'm looking to hire someone, I'm mostly looking at if they're reasonably well presented, and that doesn't mean that they have to be, have, the best clothes or the best, all of this stuff. But there's nothing worse than seeing someone fucking moping around all day with their head down, not being interactive, not being, kind to the clientele,
especially
just not being a nice person to be around.
Yeah, well, the situations that we are in is pretty similar, like the village life. So there's so many elderly people who come out and want to have a chat. If you got someone who doesn't want to interact with anyone, it's like, oh yeah, you got to go.
Yeah, I mean, we've touched on this before, but
it's a large part of the common courtesy costs nothing. That's why I say, like, common courtesy costs nothing, and it'll take you for miles. Like, yeah, some of the people that you talk to tomorrow could be voting you in next week.
Yeah, yeah. So back to being a boss, it goes two ways.
Yeah.
If you're run down yourself, and you get in the car with the worker, you've got to be that leader, and you've got to be like, good morning, how you going? All right, let's have a great day. Because on the flip side of things, if you've got that employee and they're coming to work and you're like, hey,
yeah,
or, things like that, that's immediately,
grumble dick.
It's immediately gonna have, you're gonna have bad energy.
The whole day is put off.
Yeah. And we all have our moments.
Yeah.
We all have our moments where we're not maybe our usual selves, or we're not, super energetic every day. Because it brings that person down.
It does. And like, you can tell in their motivation. If you're moping around, you're looking around and you're like, fuck, they're not doing much. That's because you're not doing much. It's because you're not putting out those vibes. So if they're looking at you moping around, they're going to think, oh, well, he's doing it, so I may as well get away with it while I can.
Yep, and something that I never got to do, I never got to hire a female in my business.
No, I haven't yet, so...
I would have, just for the fact that there's nothing against dudes, but like with gardening and stuff, I think a female would be like a really good, someone who just they got that extra little bit of care. Plenty of competent dudes out there, but I'm just saying that would have been something. It would have caused me a lot of issues at home, I reckon.
Yeah, probably. I'll be alright. But I'd love to get a female into my villages because,
just to interact with the people. Hey? Although we do have some blokes at our village that probably wouldn't.
Yeah, you were in the retirement.
H-Town wouldn't go. Yeah.
You're in the retirement game. I'm just in the village game.
Yeah, okay.
It's a bit different. But I know what you mean.
But definitely give us some feedback if there's anyone out there who is hiring a female or has hired one in the past. Let us know, because we both don't really know.
And there's like so many more women in the industry than I thought. Like now I'm on social media more. Like I see heaps more popping up. So good. Like the quality of work is banging. So it's got nothing.
We've got to shout out Carly Waller right now.
I was trying not to.
Queen.
Yeah, she does amazing.
Shout out to Carly for listening. I love seeing your pics of all the hedges.
We'll have to get you on sometime because we really want to have a chat.
Yeah, we'll get her on one day.
Yeah, we'll start doing more guests when we get a bit of a flow happening. Get a few more episodes.
So let's talk about team environments. If we're hiring more than one person, one thing that I think is pretty important, I've heard people say it, is when you're working in a team environment, you got to treat everyone the same.
Yeah,
you can't be talking about your workers to other workers.
Does it work because they're all different?
Yeah,
you gotta manage. Maybe you treat them all the same, or you give them the same respect. But you can't really.
You can still have people. I'm talking about treating people the same as a person.
Yeah, okay.
Not necessarily as a worker.
Yeah.
I've had workers before where there's people that are more competent than others.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, so and so, you'll have to whippersnip at this job. Yeah. Because I think you're going to do a better job at that.
Yeah.
And you don't have to be an asshole about it.
No.
But what I'm talking about is if you've got an issue with a worker, you can't be saying it to the other worker. You need to keep things. Now, don't get me wrong. I'll call people out if they've got the wrong attitude.
Yeah.
I don't have any issues with that. But if someone is truly trying,
Yeah.
but they're just not as good, you've got to be sympathetic to that person.
Yeah, I'm kind of lucky. I haven't really had to work in many unless we're working with you. Like we'll come together on the 40 or something like that.
That's not even real work, is it?
Not really. It's kind of fun. It's a bit of a chin wag and a bit of KFC.
Smoko's pretty loose on those days. Okay, so let's talk about when you're physically going through the process of hiring someone, where to find someone, how to approach the situation, and what does that process look like?
Yeah.
For you, what do you think is some good ideas?
For me, I personally have used a lot of contacts. So I've gone to, you first of all, like I've seen if you know of anyone that might be looking for work.
So within your internal circles?
Yeah, so I put it on my Facebook, and then I spoke to, when I was, I'm looking for someone now, I spoke to Will, who is my worker now. I said, do you have any mates that are looking for work? And yeah, so that's where I start. And then I'll move on to maybe local groups on Facebook. Just these are the free ones. And then if I've got no love from those, then I'll probably move on to Seek and then, yeah.
I'd say most people that have ever worked for me has been through some sort of word of mouth.
Yeah.
Whether I've been approached on a job, or whether it's a friend of a friend,
Yep.
or whatever the case may be. Sometimes I've had guys swing in that are just mates. They're not gonna stick around for a long time. They might be just there to get you through a tough period.
Yeah.
But if you're straight up hiring a stranger,
Yeah.
and maybe you're conducting some interviews,
Yeah.
I think paid training days,
Yeah.
where you get to feel each other out,
Yeah.
maybe with no guarantees. It's kind of all right, jump on board for a week. Let's see how especially if it's if you're a solo operator and you're looking to spend 8 hours a day with someone.
You could find out in the first couple of days, I can't be in the car with this guy.
Yeah. And look, Luke Smith, I think he mentioned this in his podcast. They're going to be on their best behavior, right?
Yeah.
And so he had his own way where he would test people.
Yeah.
I can agree with that to a certain extent. I don't know that, his example was that even if they had done fairly perfect work,
Yeah.
try and pick on something,
Yeah.
so that sets the standard.
Yeah.
I would probably. I thought about that, and I don't necessarily disagree with it, but it's probably not how I do things.
No.
Only because I try to motivate
Yeah.
workers rather than I don't want to be the big boss man. I had a worker once that would actually say yes boss and all of that stuff, and I was like, dude, don't fucking say that.
Yeah. That'll make you feel a bit uncomfortable.
Really pissed me off.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you do need to have, there's nothing worse than someone being I had another worker who he would just all day would just drop the C-bomb, just be hey, hey.
Yeah.
And, I'm cool with it in a certain environment, and, maybe here and there, but literally saying it to me every time, I'm like, dude.
Yeah. I feel like I'm a pretty good judge of character, and I feel like someone's character and personality to me, if I'm running with them solo, if I'm going from solo into an employee, it's probably their character. I can train them to do
You
what
can
we
train
do,
them to be a better worker, right?
but you can't train them to be a better person. They're already who they are. It's
Well, let's touch on that a little bit.
Yeah.
I think there is truth to it.
Yeah.
I have noticed I've been, a bad influence on some of the workers that I've had, whether they're smoking more or eating more burgers or doing something. For some of these people, depending on how old they are and who they are, whether they've found themselves yet or whether they're, just finding a new part of themselves,
Yeah.
you do have an impression on them.
Yeah. Will never drank coffee until he met me.
Perfect example. I had exactly the same thing.
Yeah.
Had a young fella, and I'd always go and get my coffee in the morning, and he literally was like, it's like I've never had a coffee.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, whoa.
Well, even when I used to work with you back in the day, our routine used to be go to the BP, an ice break, and a scratchy, and then we'd be gone.
Yeah, that's going back a long time.
That's a long time.
I haven't messed with scratchies in a long
No,
time.
neither. Oh, I got a couple the other day, and they were all duds, so not going back.
Yeah, well, you probably wouldn't be doing this podcast if you had a big one.
Yeah.
Okay, so something else that everyone needs to be able to consider, not only do you need to be able to train a worker, give them guidance for the best, right?
Yeah.
You need to, sometimes these workers, sometimes they want to be taught.
Yeah.
Whether it's going over the equipment,
Well, that's a big one.
making sure they feel comfortable with all of the pieces of equipment.
Making sure they feel confident with those pieces of equipment. We're working with things like chainsaws and hedge trimmers, and you've seen some of the damage, like some of the pages show some pretty graphic images of what happens when you muck around with a hedger, and that comes down to just that training aspect, I guess. But making them use the tools, that they probably don't particularly want to use on that training week.
And how do you feel about, this is one thing that I always do to make new workers feel comfortable. Let's say they are not very good on a whippersnipper.
Yeah.
Or a hedge trimmer, and they're trimming a reasonably nice hedge, or they're whippersnipping, whatever. One thing that I've found works okay is you give them that guidance, you try and teach them, don't overload them, just teach them the basics, and then pull away and don't hover over them and watch them like a hawk. Those clients that you have, and they'll just sit there and watch you, and you could be someone like me who's done this day in and day out for 20 years, but you got that person watching you, and it really fucking pisses you off and puts you off your game. I get this all day long at the village now.
Yeah.
But, I think when you're training someone, you can teach them to a certain point and then give them a little bit of leeway and let them, kind of feel comfortable. That's one thing that I've always tried to do. And I'm not saying I'm the best boss, but I think letting that worker feel as comfortable as they possibly can in that environment is going to help them, to become more comfortable and confident in that work.
Yeah.
And then give you guys compliments. I've always found, instead of picking on those workers, you can always tell them when, something is not perfect, but if they've trimmed a hedge and it looks pretty nice, or if they've cleaned up well, be able to, communicate with them. Hey, you know what? You've done an awesome job there. You should be really proud of yourself.
Even with mowing, if the mowing is on point, it's it's always good to throw a compliment their way. I like compliments. I like when customers say, "Geez, the place looks good," and I'm like, "Well, I'm guessing they're going to enjoy the same compliment, so you help me do it." And if a customer does give you a compliment and they're working with you, then pass that on to them and say, "Man, Joey Johns said, fucking good job." Hopefully that spurs them on. You want someone to be invested in the industry too, not just in your business, but they want to see good work. I've caught Will taking photos of his work now too, so
that's so awesome.
I know.
Yeah.
And then I steal them and use them on my Instagram.
All right, so what happens when it comes time that you've made the decision to fire someone? Doesn't matter what, obviously if you're pissed off and you've had an argument, it's a lot easier to let someone go.
You've had multiples. I've had 4 or 5 that I've had to let go. Some of
That's
them,
a lot.
That's a couple. Some of them for some serious reasons, and some of them not so much.
These days, is it just by text?
I think a couple of them. I think I did like someone who just had.
Yeah.
You know, they're just.
Oh man, I know how
they're
it
just
is.
shit. Like they just flick them a text. Like they give you that much respect. So
Yeah. Look, I've probably had situations where I've definitely had to fire people.
yeah.
But I've definitely had situations where like the time has just been up. Like I can tell they've had enough.
Yeah.
I don't want anyone around who doesn't want to be around.
Yeah.
So that makes things a bit easier. I've done deals with other businesses. One of my mates is a landscaper, and we've done like employee swaps. You and me did an employee swap.
Yeah,
I got
we've done
DJ
one.
from you.
Yeah, and I ended up with Navi.
Navi, yeah.
Yeah.
So situations like that. I mean, look, DJ, wasn't fitting in super well in your situation. Fits in fucking great with us.
Yeah. Navi didn't last too long with me either because he had to go.
Well, he
back.
was on loan.
Yeah, he was on layaway, but yeah, then I got J Boy.
Oh, young J Boy.
Yeah.
We've all had J Boy.
We've all had a bit of J.
So tell us when your last interaction was. We don't need to name him, but
Yeah.
tell us the story about.
So now we're getting into the story time.
We're probably getting close.
Yeah, okay. So this young fella, those of you who listen to Gary's All Stars podcast, we touched on it, but I had him for a while, and he was a good worker. He had his issues, like he'd have a few days off here and there.
A few bongs here and there.
Few bongs. He loved a bong, but he did it on his own time, so that's up to him. He didn't do it before work, so as far as I know. I don't know. I hope not. But anyway, he called me we were finishing up on a Friday, and he said, "Mate, I'm going away for the weekend. I'm going down to Nimbin." I thought, "Oh fuck, here we go. This is gonna be bad." But anyway, he said, "I'll see you Monday." I was like, "All right, cool." So I get a text on Sunday, "Hey mate, my lift has bailed on me. I can't get back." I'm like, "Oh, this is shit. This is no good." Tuesday came, couldn't contact him. Wednesday came, couldn't contact him. Thursday came.
I'd already be done with it.
Yeah, well, I couldn't contact him to fire him. So the whole week went through, and I just couldn't contact him. I was furious. I was under the pump so heavy, like I just got through the week. Got to Monday, he just turned up to work. Hey, I was like, "Where you fucking been, man?" He goes, "Look, I'll tell you the truth." And he went down to Nimbin and met up with some guys, and he decided that he'd befriend these guys, and they offered him a job trimming buds. So he spent the whole week trimming buds, and I said, "You've got a full-time job, like you've got a job here, man. Like what's going on?" He goes, "Yeah, they offered me more money." Then I was like, "Oh," I said, "You're gone." I said, "You're out of here."
Perfect example of someone who couldn't see the future.
Yeah. And he was like having a kid. Like for one decent pay week, like not that I was paying him shit money, but for one bit of a heavier pay week, he sacrificed multiple pay weeks ahead. So.
What's some of the worst excuses I went through once before? So I had someone, they texted me at 5 o'clock in the morning and said they had a doctor's appointment, right? Which is already bullshit, because who does that?
Yeah.
Who books a doctor's appointment at 5? I don't even know if that's possible,
Yeah,
right?
I don't know. Probably
for
now.
a sore thumb.
Yeah, that's...
So me and, I can't remember if it was Rusty. It might have been Rusty. When he finally came to work, we just handed him a rake and a bin, and we said, "We've been hedging for hours, man. You're on light duties. Your thumb must be real sore. And we made him rake the rest of the day."
Yeah.
And it was one of those things. I had no problem doing it.
Yeah.
He let us down huge. So we had so much work to do because of it. But I'll tell you a funny story of one of my employees he was not a bad kid, but we were like working hard out, just had a residential day back then, doing 12 or 13 lawns, whatever it was. And I'm like full hauling on the snipper, and the lawn that we were at, I can't remember if he'd done it before, but I knew that there was nothing that I needed to run him over. It's just like, hey man, go mow the back, right? I get a tap on my shoulder. So I stop, and I'm like, hey man, what's going on? And he's like, oh, can you help me lift the mower up the step? And I was just thinking in my head, I was like, what step? And I was thinking like, there's no steps here. And, I, sure enough, went around the back, and there is a step like this. And I just looked at him, and I was just like, wait, if you ever interrupt me to lift a mower over one step again, I was like, man, we're gonna have a problem.
That's so bad.
And I just could not believe that he didn't have the initiative.
I need to know who it is.
Huh?
I need to know who it is.
Yeah, well, we're not gonna.
After the show.
Yeah, we were not gonna bust it out. He's not a bad kid. It's
Yeah.
just like I don't know what he was thinking. And same worker. I guess it's like nowadays, everyone has rights. But like, no, but when I say that, I mean, they do have rights. But like, I think, I can't remember if I was getting angry at him or something, and I called him a dickhead. And he said, you can't call me a dickhead. And I was like, man, I can do whatever the fuck I want.
Yeah.
I wasn't calling him a dickhead as in like, hey, you dickhead piece of shit. It was just, I kind of just said it. But they're, some of the things where, being a boss,
Yeah.
you need to be able to set, and we've all learned.
Yeah.
I've done things that I'm not, proud of. But it happens. But do you have any other funny stories of guys calling in sick?
Okay,
or
so
anything?
this wasn't in the lawn care industry, but this is too good not to tell. So I used to work for a big logistics company, and I worked in like a seafood distribution production area. And a couple of the boys actually listen to this podcast and dig it. So this guy, he's one of the nicest guys in the world. He loves his bongs as well. And I got to work, and I was checking the messages, and I got this message, and it was like, hey man, I won't be coming in tonight. My skateboard's got a flat tire. And I was like, no way. So I got my phone out. I like recorded this. I got everyone in the office. Like, I don't know if that's something I should have done, but I got everybody in the office. I was getting people from the warehouse. I was like, you got to listen to this. And yeah, that was one of the best excuses.
In a big company environment, that would be, I still think it's very funny.
It's so funny.
If I had a solo worker, one employee, and they tried to do that,
Yeah, I know. So we had a crew of like, 15, 16 people at that stage. But man, that was one of the best excuses. This guy used to ride his skateboard along like a bit of a height. Like this was out like Lytton Road and stuff like that. He'd ride his skateboard and he fell in a pothole once. He came to work just bleeding. I'm like, you got to go home, man. We're working with fresh produce here. Off you go.
All right, well, I've got a golden goodie for you all.
Yeah.
Now, I had a young worker, and I've had several of these workers where you can see that they've got more potential than an average worker, and eventually they go on to either own their own businesses or purchase their own franchises, or eventually they leave you for a better situation, right?
Yeah.
And it's inevitable. It happens. Like when you hire workers, you either get a good worker who needs to be told what to do, or you get a good worker who is eventually going to go beyond.
Yeah.
Start their own business, whatever. Even I did the same thing, right?
Yeah.
And then you get your guys that are no hopers and they're not going to go anywhere, right? This particular young fella, he didn't know anything about the industry, but right away I could tell he was probably the worst person I'd ever seen on a whippersnipper for, it was so weird, like 2 days, and then something just clicked.
Yeah.
Anyway, he worked with me for about a year. Never really had any more responsibility than just working with me. But eventually he got to a point where he's like, Ben, I think there's more out for me. I'm still young. I'm gonna give this a crack. So we worked out an agreement. Actually sold him some clients.
Yeah.
He stayed on, 2 or 3 days a week to help him build his business.
Yeah.
And, I was in a situation where I could do that. I could lean on some other people. Everything was cool. Now, we had one big site that we were contracted to look after, and we were coming up to when we picked up our second big site, which was big news for us because, I had to get another team. I had to, all of a sudden I couldn't be at that one place.
Yeah.
So I'm going backwards and forwards, managing 2 teams. Everything's going reasonably well. But when we got to the Christmas period, I really needed to go back to this young fella and say, hey, can I pay you extra to look after the site for the week of Christmas, in between Christmas and New Year? So, he was doing that. He had worked on the site millions of times. I could just leave him, right?
Yeah.
So then we get back. Not that any of us really had any holidays, but we got back to our normal routine, like the 5th of January.
Yeah.
And, I start hearing these rumors that he's been approaching the body corporate saying, I can do this job, probably cheaper than what Ben could do it. I'm here anyway. You guys have seen my work. And, I just was absolutely stunned, right?
Yeah.
It's like the girlfriend code.
Yeah.
Like you just, you don't mess with that.
Don't cut someone else's grass.
Don't cut someone else's grass. I like that. So anyway, I sort of confronted him, and what happens at this particular site is that every year you put your numbers in and it goes to a vote. Whether they like you or not, it still goes to the vote. I'd been there for 2 or 3 years, faced, had some great years, had some bad years, but still had the job. So anyway, confronted him, and he's like, yeah, well, there's going to be a vote. Is it okay if I put my numbers in? And I was like, absolutely not.
Yeah.
I just couldn't believe it, right? So he's kind of sitting there thinking like, oh, I thought this would be okay.
Yeah.
And, this was someone that I had really opened the doors to the inner workings.
Yeah.
Certain, like all of our contracts, all of the inner workings, how to quote. I had been teaching him all of this because he was moving on to his own business, right? So, anyway, it got to the point where he was legit going to submit numbers.
Yeah.
And, I just, didn't know, it went from me being stunned to just being, super, super angry. And we actually got into a situation where BJ knows this story.
I was witness to the whole sort of saga, but I missed the end.
And it was a really stressful time for me, but we actually got to a situation where, obviously abuse back and forth. He was essentially fighting me for this. And if it was a normal contract that I didn't know, there would be no issues. Yeah. That's just business competition. But this was a dog act, right?
This was a dog act.
So we just got into a situation where I just I couldn't handle it any longer. I said, look, we need to meet up, and we need to sort this out like men. And I didn't really know what was going to happen. And you actually came, you were working on site. I was on site. I get a text message saying I'm here. And sure enough, when I get out there, he's got his shirt off and he's ready to roll. Yeah. And I still didn't really know what was going to happen. I was kind of bluffing. Yeah. And, you know, we went back and forth and I just couldn't help it. And I just absolutely slogged him. And it was a little bit embarrassing after the slog. We kind of wrestled for a little bit. Really, really embarrassing. And I definitely, this is not something that, like, this is not good business right here, because I actually had the contract. It was a retirement village across the road. So essentially I was actually biffing in front of two of my good contracts.
And a kindy.
And a kindy, yeah.
And a KFC.
So anyway, that's how that happened. But I got to be honest. I couldn't live with myself.
Yeah.
I just needed something. Just needed to be done. And
when you came in, you were like, "What is that fucking fight?"
and it was probably my first fight in like 10 years.
I've just got a hedger in my hand. I'm like, "What?"
So anyway, I thought that would be a good little entertaining story.
Oh, man.
But anyway, look, I think we're pretty much ready to wrap this one up.
That's a good one.
Look, hopefully we've shed a little bit of insight into something, you know, to know and understand about when hiring a worker.
Yeah.
You know, whether it's young, old, male, female, it doesn't really matter.
No. As long as they fit you, like, it's your business and you've got to be with these people and, you know, like, you've got to look after, you've got to want to look after them. Like, if these are people that aren't going to fit you, then maybe, you know.
And back to what you were saying about, you know, if that person just doesn't feel right, even if they are competent in the works, you've really got to, because it is such an intimate, small business environment, you really have to feel comfortable.
You haven't smoko with these people. Like, they're talking about stuff that you have no idea about, and vice versa. I don't know. It might just be me because everything I do is sort of work orientated. So
actually, just quickly, one more story just popped up in my head. Yeah. I had a worker once. He said his uncle died, and he like rang me crying and all this stuff, and I was like, a little bit stunned at how upset he was about his uncle. And anyway, it wasn't a big issue. He had a couple of days off. I was never going to fire him.
Yeah.
But I had thought about it because I thought he was playing me, right?
Yeah.
That's what I thought deep down. But I do remember discussing it with a client that I was close with, and them saying like, oh, you know, you got to be careful these days with how you let people go.
Yeah.
But I disagree with that. I think in a small business environment, if you know, I'm not saying to fire people based on their looks and stuff like that. I don't think that's fair. But you know, like what you were saying, if you're just not clicking, and there's nothing worse than, you know, being like homesick at work, right?
Yeah.
So some of those situations could be a little bit difficult. I think sometimes you just have to suck up your balls and do what you think is right. Go with your gut.
Yeah. And if you don't feel comfortable being around someone as well, that's a huge part. Like, not feeling comfortable. Like we've got quite similar senses of humour. Like, it's easy to work together. Same with Will. Same with Russ. DJ's in there. You know, we all. Like, we've all got the same sort of mindset. And
also, I know we said we were wrapping this up. Something else has just come to mind. Yeah. Sometimes, you know, as people, we go through shit, right?
Yeah.
It just happens. Sometimes, you know, someone might have got dumped by a girlfriend, or someone might have had a death in the family, or whatever it is. I mean, I know with me, let's say DJ, for example, he's got a family, he's trying to buy a house, you know, it's hot. You know, all of these things, and sometimes he's not his usual self, and he's like, you know, a little bit not as energetic, or you know, needs a bit of a kick up the ass. And you know, it happens to all of us. Now, but if it's happening every day, that's different. But if it happens every once in a while, I think as employers, we need to put ourselves in their shoes sometimes. Because it's not every day that I feel like, $1 million ready to roll.
Yeah, but there's differences because we hire a lot of younger dudes and they party, And, you know, if they were coming in
that's
every Tuesday...
no tolerance for me.
Yeah, having a bit of a come-down Tuesday when they're in a bad mood or something like that, then
No,
it's like...
no tolerance for me. Like, I had a guy that he would go out on Thursday night for uni night or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Then he would do Sunday sessions, come in like shit on a Monday.
Yeah.
And, I mean, and he knew it.
Yeah.
And, I used to load it up on
Yeah.
him. Because, the weekend's not enough?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I didn't have kids back then.
No.
And, I would go out on a Friday, Saturday night. And there's no way if I worked for someone, I would come in on a Friday and a Monday like an absolute piece of crap.
And if I did have something, like that wedding we went to, and I had to get up at 5:30 in the morning... Yeah.
A once off is, like if a worker of mine came to me and said, hey, I have to go to a wedding on a Sunday night, it'd be a different story. Yeah. But if they're just going out on the piss or going out all night, it's, you know what I mean? Like, enough is enough.
Yeah.
And if you support it too much, it becomes okay.
Yeah.
And I think, especially with alcohol and the whole bongs thing, like, I would never tolerate anyone.
Yeah.
I've had the bong heads before, and it always starts off like, oh, I'll never do this before work, right? And then it always happens, and it's always like, I just don't want to be involved in it. I don't want to condone it.
No,
they're just lazy. Just how it is. That's how I feel. Don't really care if I offend anyone either. But in my business, there's no way that I'm going to have some slop ass, half ass in there.
How do you feel about speed though?
Well, speed makes you really go. Yeah. So speed's cool.
Yeah, it's good.
I don't know. Yeah. All right. So don't forget to check out Gary Ashton's Lawn Stars. BJ was on this week. Don't know who he's got coming up next week, but
he hasn't dropped it yet. We might have while we've been doing this.
But they're a pretty good listen. So jump aboard that. Don't forget to give us a like. Definitely send in your feedback. Hey, special shout out to Daniel Smith.
Yeah.
He's been a mad supporter for us, giving us lots of feedback. We're going to send him some free shit. Josh, we're going to send him some stuff.
Yeah, got plenty.
Got plenty of stuff.
Cool.
He's probably going to be offended if you send him some skag stuff. He's kind of not really a skag dude.
He's a direct collect boy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
you're getting some skag stuff.
Does Gianni Ferrari even have any flow? Like
Daniel Smith.
Yeah. Daniel Smith is their flow.
That's their presence.
We'll get you some Catch Pro stuff, pal. Maybe some TBL flow.
Yeah, I might get you a key ring. But you'll be getting some skag stuff.
All right. Well, thank you very much for tuning in. And don't forget to give us a like, all of that stuff.
Peace.